Hello and welcome to this edition of the Sofa Sports News Football Show, brought to you by the FNX Network. In part one, we look back at week 8 in the English Premier League. In part 2, we discuss match day 3 in the Champions League. In part 3, we round up some of the action from across the continent, in particular the big stories from Serie A and La Liga. And in part 4, we look at the recent sacking of Craig Shakespeare, the draw for the World Cup Qualification playoffs, and we have a little bit of fun. I'm joined this evening by SofaSportsNews.com's very own Dan DeLuca.
Hi, Harry.
How you doing, Dan?
A bit under the weather this week, Harry, to be fair.
The DeLuca sniffles are back.
Yeah, get the violins out.
That's it. We're also joined by the fisherman himself, Mr. Simon Alavi. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Apart from you always introducing Dan first, I'm good.
Well, as I look at the screen, Dan comes up on the left. So, I read left to right.
I just assumed it's because I had a bigger nose. You could see me first.
20 years of friendship down the drain. Cheers, Harry.
Right, guys, we are recording via the internet. So I'd like to apologise to our listeners in advance for any sound issues that may occur. Obviously, we do our best to edit those out. But if we can't, you'll just have to deal with it. Let's begin right here in the UK. Pep Guardiola's Manchester City turned in arguably one of the best performances the Premier League has seen in years. Despite pulling the game back to 3-2 at one stage, Stoke City were torn to pieces, battered, bruised, and literally torn a new one by Kevin De Bruyne and co. Is that as good a team performance as you guys have seen in the Premier League? Starting with you, DeLuca.
I've seen a lot of good team performances over the years. A lot. And you don't have to win 7-2 to put in a good performance. I've seen brilliant team performances that have ended 1 and 2-0. Individual performance, I cannot think of one better than what Kevin De Bruyne put together. There's a lot of talk about who's world class and who isn't. That is a display that is from a different planet. And I don't know, I've always known he's been a good player, and he's been getting better and better every game. But to watch him do that was just incredible. Obviously, Man City have got a lot going forward, and at their best, conceding 2 goals is not going to be a problem if they score 5, 6, 7 every week. But Kevin De Bruyne was just absolutely ridiculous, and it's just hard to see. They're not going to carry on like that, are they? But it's hard to see where the chinks are going to come.
Alavi, you've always been a huge fan of Pep Guardiola and the way he plays football. What did you make of Saturday's game?
Yeah, I was trying to think. Can you recall a team playing this good, sort of in Premiership style-wise? Because I certainly can't. I know it's only a few games and they've scored a lot of goals, but I can't recall the quality of football being that good. We've seen thumpings in the past, 8-0, 9-0 even, but to score that many goals of a good quality, I've never seen before. And you look at some of their stats in terms of the top 5 leagues in Europe, yet their pass completion is right up there. Number 1, 90%, possession-wise, number 1, I think it's about 66, 67%. But we're also leading the aerial duels. But also, you'd never think that, would you? That's what's really surprising about Man City at the moment. They seem to be the full package. Yeah, they let in a couple, but they're going to score 5 or 6, so it's irrelevant. Now, Dan touched upon De Bruyne. Assists are great, okay? When you can dink it over a defender, play it through their legs, whatever, it looks great. To be able to put the weight on a pass and for it to go past 5 opposition players perfectly into the hands of the feet more accurately of your fellow attacking player, the way it's just frictionless. The way he plays, it's artistic, and I think he's really found the balance, Pep, between someone like Silva and someone like De Bruyne. I think Silva was trying to do De Bruyne's role too much last year. Silva, for me, is someone you want on the edge of the area, little flick here, little flick there, like he did for the goal against Chelsea. Just take a player away, just the assist before the assist, if you like. But De Bruyne is the powerhouse. He's strong. He's great on the ball. He's the one you want collecting the ball from Fernandinho, playing those 30, 40-yard passes. He's got the strength. He's got the youth on his side. So I think Pep's found the right balance. And I think, you both support clubs in the Premier League, of course, but you wouldn't begrudge Pep going and winning it, playing like that, would you?
Well, no.
Yeah, look, it's nice to watch. It's nice to watch. In terms of what I've seen historically, like the Arsenal teams of the early 2000s played a type of football that rivaled it in a lot of ways. The 8-0 wins that Chelsea used to string together were more powerful, bulldozing displays where they'd like grind the opposition to pieces and then pick them off. So in terms of watching football, look, it's brilliant. It's brilliant to watch. Whether I like Guardiola that much, it's hard to deny that when you're watching displays like that, there's something in there that is adding value to the Premier League and fans of the Premier League to watch. And in terms of what you said there, Kevin De Bruyne, he's like the engine, isn't he? Whereas Silva now provides the delicate sort of touches, and they're out of each other's way. What Pep's managed to do with his war chest is sign players that have allowed those two to do the jobs he wants them to, whereas maybe last year he wasn't quite there yet. So I was saying,
Dan, I mean, Arsenal weren't scoring goals with back heels in the corner flag and on their own corner flag, passed through their own keeper, every player getting a touch. This is a different level of football.
Yeah, no, I agree. But then football has changed an awful lot from when Arsenal were doing it. So you've got to factor that in. And you could say to some degree Pep's changed that himself from Barcelona because that's what started this style in a way. So things like certain stats I ignore. So I don't really bother with pass completion anymore because a pass is a lot easier to complete in this day and age because people are more tolerant of a little 5-yard ball, turn around 5 yards. So I'm expecting more passes to be complete. What's really impressive is when I think of going end to end, the Man United teams that were really successful, they were devastating on the break because they'd be from one corner flag to the other flag in about 10 seconds. Pep's team do it, but they do it in about 45 seconds, but every player gets in on the act. And it's the movement off the ball that I think is where they're head and shoulders above every team. And I liken it, watching Real Madrid, we'll come on to them later, I'm sure. But Real Madrid last night, why they stood out in that game and why they looked a class above for most of the game was the movement off the ball. And Pep's Man City side have got that to a T. And you look at, I can't even remember what goal it was because they scored so many, but it was a goal that Silva tapped in, the one where everyone in the team touched it. And
the third one.
Yeah, it was Jesus who scored in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But if the pass was underhit by 2 yards, there was a guy at the front post to tap it in. It was overhit, there was a guy at the back post to tap it in. And there was just a queue of players waiting to walk the ball into the net. And it's amazing. It's amazing to watch teams play with that much confidence. And obviously he's doing something right, isn't he? He gets all these teams to play in this way going forward.
Number one in the world, that's why.
Before we move on to Manchester City, guys, before we move on, we got a question in from Tony. And Tony wants to know if you had to describe Kevin De Bruyne's performance in one word, what would it be? Alavi?
Frictionless. It's like something of it means like something of like, it means like almost like, like without effort, like, that's what it means. Sort of like just friction. You must know what friction means. It was just frictionless.
Friction, yeah, but is frictionless actually a word?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I must admit.
Hey, some of us got past GCSEs.
The Luca?
It was just.
Ask the Luca for one word.
You know what? I've never seen you two stuck words in my life.
It was class, but proper class. It was class. That's the word I use. So easy, effortless.
Graceful, maybe even graceful.
It doesn't look like he's even trying. That's when you know you're dealing with someone special.
If they went and won the league, I know you wouldn't as an Arsenal fan, but you got to admire it.
Well, what's the other alternative? If the alternative is Mourinho winning it, then I might as well go and buy a Man City shirt now because there's no way I want Jose to win it, especially the way he plays football. But let's move on anyway from Manchester City. Oh yeah, one last thing. It's typical, isn't it? Man City scores 7 goals, and the one Man City player in my fantasy team, which was Kevin De Bruyne, didn't get on the score sheet. Typical.
Didn't he get any assists?
Yeah, he got a couple of assists.
Oh, then.
Yeah. It was 4, wasn't it?
I think it was 3. But anyway, if you've got a Man City player a Man City attacking player in your fantasy team, they score 7 goals and he doesn't get any of them. It just sounds like my luck so far this season.
Yeah, that's why you're bottom.
I'm not quite bottom, but I'm definitely not having a good season. The derby between Liverpool and Manchester United, to put it politely, was a dull affair. What were your thoughts on the way United approached the game? I'm going to start with you, Alavi, on this one, but I guess the less time we spend on this one, the better. So let's keep it brief.
This one I'm always torn with, and I know we touched it a bit on it a couple of weeks ago. I think the most important thing is to play really nice football, but I'm not a manager under loads of pressure, being paid millions a year to deliver results. So it's easy for me to say, yeah, he should try and play expansive football, but at the end of the day, what do you want to do? Hit him go punch for punch and end up losing 3-2 to Liverpool? That's the thing. Like, we're not in the results business like he is. So yeah, we can only say what we think we'd do in his position, but whether we'd actually go and do it is another thing. Like you say, it was, match of the day had it on last. Like, that says all you need to know. There was one debatable penalty incident, De Gea proving he's the best goalkeeper in the world, and that was about it.
Yeah. DeLuca, do you have any objections to the way Mourinho approaches these kind of fixtures?
No, look, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it in that sort of game. There's a bit I do have a problem with, which I'll come on to, but a lot was made before the game about Liverpool's record against the top six compared to the other top six sides. So why is he going to go there and not play in that way in the first instance? Why is he going to go there? We've seen Man City season, we've seen Chelsea get battered. Liverpool they've drawn with Tottenham 3 of the last 4. I think they beat us once. But their results against the top sides, they dismantled Arsenal a few weeks ago, didn't they? So why do people watching expect him to go there and do that? But what I do expect is at some point in the game, his team to try and attack and defend for most of it, like Tottenham did last night. They went defensive, but they did try and get men forward when they could. Why can't he compromise a little bit? So I've got no issue with him going there defensively. I've got no issue with him suffocating the opposition. It's the right thing to do. It's tactically sensible. But I think he could give a little bit more back. I think he's got enough attacking quality in his side not to have to do that completely for the whole 90 minutes. So that's what was disappointing.
Yeah, I think if City could go and win there, and then that will end up being the difference, won't it?
I mean, you know what? For me, it's dull. It's boring. This was once the biggest fixture in the English calendar, and people will argue it still is, but for me it's not anymore because it's just boring and it's so predictable, and any big fixture involving Mourinho now is going to end up the same way. It's just so predictable. And for me, sport is about results, but it's also about entertaining the fans. And I don't know, if I had traveled to an away game to see my team not even attempt to cross the halfway line, I'd be a bit disappointed. There's no doubt about that. Alavi, do you think it is the biggest fixture in the English calendar still, or has it lost some of its meaning?
In terms of history and in terms of the most Premier League watched game, it's still the biggest. If you go around the world, I'm telling you that's still the biggest. Biggest game, easily. Trust me, easily. In terms of the one, you look forward to the most, you'd probably say possibly like City against either Arsenal or Spurs, or because they're the 3 teams that probably play the best football. So some sort of game between City, Arsenal and Spurs will be the most exciting, in my opinion.
Okay. DeLuca, do you still think it's the game in the Premier League?
No, not really. I mean, the last 2 or 3 have been mind-numbing, and they're not. If you look at the last 5 or 6 years, trophy-wise, as in winning titles, Liverpool, Manchester United haven't really contributed to that so much. And there's bigger games now. So this season, the biggest game on paper is Manchester City versus Chelsea, isn't it? You've got the 2 most impressive squads on paper, the champions, etc., etc. I mean, I always, from a neutral point of view, which I'm not, I'd like to think people are watching the North London Derby, because invariably you get 2 teams who go for it and trade a lot of goals, and you get lots of weird swings, like 2-0 up, 5-2 down, 3-1 down, 4-3 up, that sort of stuff. So you never quite know which way it's going to go. Or, well, you did once upon a time, but I'd like to think that's pretty exciting. But then obviously I do look forward to that because I'm a big Spurs fan. But yeah, Liverpool, Man United, you're not getting anything exciting at the moment, unfortunately.
Dan,
and,
I'd say the
it's
biggest game
disappointing.
this season. I'd say the biggest game this season is the Manc Derby, not City Chelsea.
Well, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Before the season started, I would have
But
thought.
you know how that game's going to go, don't you? You know what's going to happen. You know,
But isn't that a skill to nullify your opponent as well?
Yeah, it is. It is.
I know, Dan, you're Italian, so you can sit this one out in terms of being a bit biased on that front. But it is a skill, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Don't get me wrong, and it's a great thing to have in your locker, in particular when you go away to these sides. But it's like what Dan said, and you know, whilst you can go away from home against a big side and keep it tight and protect what you've got, there has to be some point in the game where you make an attempt to win it. That's my issue with Mourinho. And on Saturday, there was no attempt, absolutely nothing. I don't even know if they had a shot on target in the second half. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they didn't. Or if they did, it was one or two maximum. I'd like to see him in certain periods of a game, maybe just try and catch his opponent on the break, just anything. But for me, it's boring, it's predictable, it's dull, and that's why we're going to move on from it. Roy Hodgson's Eagles flew high over Selhurst Park and literally took a dump on Antonio Conte's dodgy wig. I know we discussed Hodgson and the situation there at length last week, but surely nobody saw that result coming. DeLuca, was you shocked to see Crystal Palace not only score their first goal of the season, but register their first points against the champions?
Is that a wig? Of course, it's a wig.
It's either a wig or an unbelievable transplant. I don't know. I'll have to look that up, but
it's a really solid implant. Once upon a time, I think it was Materazzi. I should research this, but he had an argument with Materazzi, and Materazzi made reference to his hair transplant, and he commented something about money and success can buy you a hair transplant. Unfortunately, they don't do brain transplants. I need to get the quote, but it was him and Materazzi. There were some shots fired. Was I surprised? Yeah, I was, because Crystal Palace have been absolutely woeful. They've not scored a goal. Suddenly they're chipping in from all angles. Oh, they got off to a good start with the own goal, didn't they? But Wilf Zaha made all the difference, didn't he? There's something about the world at the moment. There's a defeat and everyone seems to overreact. But with Chelsea, and with Arsenal to some degree, every time there's a defeat, you automatically feel there's some kind of underlying issue. And maybe there isn't. And they've bounced back, relatively well tonight, Chelsea, didn't they? I know they didn't get the win, but they showed a bit of character and resilience. So I don't know what it is, but it is a really, really unexpected result. I weren't expecting Crystal Palace to turn it around quite that quickly, if at all, but certainly not at home to Chelsea.
I think they've got injuries, to be fair, Chelsea, haven't they? And they got a lot more players than Palace coming off an international break. So, who are obviously involved in the break and are going to be more tired. I know that's not an excuse, but those two things do add up. Like their injury list at the moment, Chelsea isn't looking great. All right, Palace haven't got any strikers. They've had to play Zaha and I think Townsend played up front. So you've got to give Hodgson credit. He had 2 weeks to get everyone together and he's obviously done it really well. We were saying, Harry, that their season starts after Chelsea. Well, obviously, they've gone and managed to get 3 points against Chelsea. And, they didn't do it in the way that the so-called smaller teams do it against the big club. They actually played quite decent football. Like, they actually had quite a decent share of the possession. They dominated some of the game. It wasn't like your scrappy sort of typical relegation candidate win against the champions, was it?
Yeah,
you got to give him credit for what he did. And like Harry said on the last pod, Hodgson is not a bad manager. You don't become a bad manager just because you couldn't do well with England. And and something I alluded to last week, the amount of ex-players who have come out and spoken about how good a manager he actually is, that has to be a testament to his ability, surely.
Yeah, and we said last week that, like you pointed out, we said that their season started after Chelsea, and so anything they got against Chelsea was a bonus, and it's a huge boost. And words can't explain what a confidence boost that will be for that squad of players. Just touching on the point, Wilfred Zaha's return, not only was he brilliant, but I think he had an impact on Andros Townsend, and I think that's the best I've seen Townsend playing a Palace shirt since he made the move from north to south. So, it looks as though Zaha's impact was felt right throughout the team, rather than just the added bonus of having him there as an individual.
Well, Hodgson gave Townsend about 142 England caps, didn't he? So, he likes him. But they played they're both quick, obviously, but they played so well together. They almost seemed to have an understanding of two players who had played together for a lot longer than they actually have, and that's what Palace really missed, just that injection of pace up front. And you think Benteke, would you play him next game if he was available?
I think with Benteke, you need to play a very specific style of football.
Yeah.
And whilst I think he's a good option, I think if you're starting him week in, week out, you're limited in the way you can play. There's some strikers like Morata is a prime example of a striker who can play both ways. If you want to go long, he can do it. If you want him to run in behind, he can do that as well. And that's one of the things that's so good about him.
Yeah. Torres as well was another one.
Yeah, Torres was like that. And there are plenty of strikers like that. Whereas for me, Christian Benteke is a very limited player. When Sam Allardyce was at Palace, he was the perfect player because he suited Big Sam's style down to a T. Whereas I think Hodgson, even when Benteke is available, I don't think Hodgson will be using him as often. But who knows?
Well, he's available end of this month, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I do think with obviously Morata that we just spoken about not playing, and then Batshuayi having to play up front. Batshuayi, I think it's clear now he's not good enough for that level. I know he contributed towards the end of the last season, and he's going to chip in with the odd goal in that team, as I probably would if I got my boots out now. So that's not too impressive, but I think it says something. I'm very critical of the way Chelsea run their football club, and the thing is, obviously their fans are always going to be happy because every 3 years they're going to win a league based on the last, the past decade or whatever. So it's all well and good, but someone like on the same weekends that they've been beaten to Palace with their main and only really decent striker out, Tammy Abraham has knocked in two for Swansea. And I'm not saying Tammy Abraham is necessarily a better player, but I just find it odd that these players aren't given a chance at all, so that when they have got shortages, they can't draft someone in and improve them. I just don't understand the way they run their club. It doesn't make any sense, and it's great because they win.
That's an exclusive issue to Chelsea, though, Dan. I think that's a problem right across the game. I don't think it's something that only Chelsea are guilty of. So,
I think that they do it on the largest scale, don't they? They do it on the largest scale, and the reason I pick on Chelsea, and I think
you're a Spurs fan and you don't like them.
I don't like anyone, to be honest. So I'm sorry, but the thing with Chelsea have won the FA Youth Cup for I think it's 5 of the last 7 years. So that means their youth setup, whether they're bringing players in young from other clubs or they're coaching players in their academy, their youth setup is the best in the league. So why, apart from Ruben Loftus-Cheek, who's had a few little kicks and now he's out on loan again, isn't he? Where's he gone?
Palace.
Can't remember. Palace, yeah. Right, so he's out on loan again. Ironically, Palace. There you go. Where are these players? Where are they? Dominic Solanke's now moved to Liverpool. All right, he's won with their bench, so he's not good enough to start for them. Maybe he's not good enough to start for Chelsea. But why are these players developing to such a great place at one age and then just grinding to a halt? There's got to be something else Chelsea can do, surely.
But I think that's like a wider point. In terms of the actual game itself, the main man missing was Kante, wasn't he? I mean, if you don't have him in front of a defence, then your lack of pace, i.e. Cahill, is going to be exposed by Zaha and Townsend. So the way they played today was a lot better because Christian Eriksen went into defence and you can use Luiz as a holding midfielder, etc. So I'm sure we'll go on to that in a bit, but you have to make tactical adjustments when you don't have a player like Kante and you don't have his pace and hard work to protect a back three. That holding midfielder, becomes so much more important when it's a back three.
Yeah, it does.
So much more important.
But who is Kante's replacement? It's the Matic.
Well, that's the problem.
It's Matic.
Yeah,
Exactly. They've sold him twice. They've sold him. They've bought him back for more than they sold him for because they realised they made a mistake. They've sold him again. So it's just a really odd. It's just a really odd way they run their football club. And while they're winning leagues, I suppose they'll say it doesn't matter and good luck to them. But it just doesn't make any sense to me. They seem to go from a place where you think, well, they're going to kick on and they could win the league again for a couple of seasons in a row because they're in such a good place. And then they seem to like self-implode and kind of almost cobble a team together for a season. It's just odd.
Fair point. That's enough Chelsea talk because, to be honest, my stomach's starting to turn a little bit. Let's talk about diving. It continues to plague the sport. Thankfully, none of these two with me tonight are referees because Alavi would have the whistle in his mouth all the time and DeLuca would require the defender to draw blood before he points to the spot. The latest incident to spark debate on the topic was the penalty awarded to Watford in their fixture versus Arsenal on Saturday evening. Neil Swarbrick pointed to the spot, but the replay showed there was minimal contact and that Hector Bellerin didn't even really make any challenge. DeLuca, thoughts on that one?
Look, it wasn't a penalty. It wasn't. I think most of us will agree with that, or most people will agree with it. It wasn't a penalty.
Yeah, it wasn't a penalty.
I wouldn't give most penalties, but I certainly wouldn't give that penalty. There wasn't a lot in it. In real time, watching it, I was expecting the referee to point to the spot, and he did. It was, the speed, the angle, the way Bellerin cut across, and the way Richarlison fell. It fooled me in real time, and I guess it fooled the referee too. I don't think he dived either. I think it was a coming together, and he was knocked off balance or out muscled or however you want to call it. But yeah, it certainly wasn't a penalty. It wasn't a foul, and obviously Arsenal were unlucky to be pegged back at that point in the game.
Well, this is the debate then. What is a dive? So is a dive, I would define a dive as if you have the ability to stay up and you've gone down. I personally, one of the very, very few things I'm old school about, I see that as a dive. Now, the modern fan and the modern player and everything else, they see a dive as you haven't actually even touched me. There was no contact and I've just fallen over. That's all that a dive can be. And they're two very different things. And this is why I think that this whole, and I know probably Harry, you want to speak about this whole retrospective action thing, is going to be quite difficult to actually be successful in the Premier League.
Well, yeah, I've got a few issues with this whole situation. First of all, as you guys have both said, and rightly so, it wasn't a penalty. It was no way a penalty kick. It's a penalty kick that has altered the result of a game. There's no doubt about that. Up until that point, Watford were I know they were only 1-0 down, but they weren't looking as though they were going to come back. There was no comeback on the cards. So that penalty for me has been huge in terms of deciding the outcome of the actual game. So that's the first point. You can't afford to get those things wrong. Secondly, retrospective action, it's great in theory. It's a lovely idea. Everybody wants to hear it. Everybody wants to hear that the cheats have been punished. But the fact of the matter is this: even if Richarlison was to get a 2-match ban,
it doesn't affect you in any way, does it?
It doesn't help Arsenal as a football club. I'm an Arsenal fan, and as an Arsenal fan, Richarlison getting a retrospective ban does not bring that scoreline back to what it should have been. The pendulum completely swung when Watford got level, and that is a result of an awful refereeing decision. So, people can bang on and on and on about it as much as they want, but end of the day, it's just not on. It's just not on at all. We lost you for a minute there, DeLuca.
Yeah, so
and Alavi, we lost you both for a minute. Yeah, so
I don't know why. I thought you were so annoyed that you just. I
thought you'd ended this week's cast. I thought that was it.
No, that's the joys of being able to edit this afterwards. So No problems there. But yeah, like I was saying, I just don't think as much as retrospective action is great in theory, it doesn't actually help Arsenal, and Arsenal have suffered as a result of it.
Well, it's a bit weird as well, isn't it, Harry? Because you're saying something like you can get a yellow card in a game, but if the referee spots it after, then in theory it's sort of a red card because they're getting a 2-game ban. So I find that bit a bit weird. Now, Scotland have been doing it, haven't they, since... And I know we've got a few Scottish people on our Facebook page, Rob Palmer being one, and he was telling me they've been doing it since, I think, 2011, 2012. So I'd be interested to see what the stats are there, whether they have actually cut out diving or... Because the general consensus is that it's improved it there because it's a better deterrent. So can you see in the long run, it might work because next time the Watford guy won't dive because he knows he's going to get done. Obviously, he hasn't got done, so...
Right, there's two things we've got to address here, though. And I'll take you back to a podcast we did about 6 weeks ago. Tim Curtis was one of our guests, and we spoke about this. And I said you will never be able to implement retrospective punishment for 2 reasons. You cannot, on a video, prove if someone dived. Now, I happen to think Richarlison didn't dive in this case. That, to me, did not appear to be a dive. I think he's been knocked over and it wasn't a foul. There's always going to be situations where it's neither a foul nor a dive. I don't think the decision was that bad based on where the referee was and the way the action took place. I think it was very unfortunate that the way it happened made it look like a penalty. The way the fall was, the speed, the direction of the ball, the way Bellerin cut across. But it wasn't a dive. And what you were saying about retrospective punishment, I covered that on that podcast as well, where there could be a situation where if Richarlison gets... let's say, for example, Richarlison is Watford's best player, which he isn't, but let's say he is, and he gets 2 retrospective game ban now for diving, and his next 2 games against your top 4 rivals, let's say Liverpool and Tottenham, for sake of argument, and then he's screwed Arsenal for diving, and then he doesn't get to play against your rivals, which helps your rivals twice. It can never ever work in a parallel world. If you're trying to make it fairer, it's not going to work in that respect. Yeah. It can't happen.
It's a difficult one, and it's a problem right across the game. It's not something that we're easily going to eradicate. So I guess it's part and parcel of the sport now.
I mean, 3 weeks ago, Dele Alli dived, and it was the clearest dive you're ever going to see. He wasn't banned for 2 games. So after that, the whole idea is a farce.
Yeah, it's got to be applied consistently, and unfortunately, it's not going to be. Just before we finish this very long part 1, I just want to get you guys' thoughts on Troy Deeney's comments. Starting with you, Alavi, what did you make of his decision to come out and basically try and humiliate Arsenal?
I think I actually, and I'm sure you deep down agreed with quite a lot of what he was saying. And it was actually quite good to get someone, a footballer come out. And, there's too many Harry Symeous in football for me, too many people, wanting machines and robots to be playing the game. I like someone with a bit of character to come out and talk. I do think he went a bit too far with the whole cojones thing or whatever he said, because you can't, I think that was one step too far, but he was quite honest about his own limitations as a player, wasn't he? So that one point I think was a bit too far, and the way he said it, the actual other points he made. Well, if I was an Arsenal fan, I'd want to listen to a bit more of that, because that's a real insight into what opposition players think.
Go on, DeLuca, before I go off on one.
Oh God.
Yeah, look. The fact he touched on his own limitations as a player saves him a little bit, but I thought the comments were poor. All right, I thought they were poor. Look, he's dead right what he's saying, and it's no surprise to you that Arsenal, and look, giving the penalty away, which you're saying has changed the game. It changed the momentum of the game, absolutely. But a team like Arsenal should be able to do more. They shouldn't capitulate like that, and I think that's what Troy Deeney's getting at. And he's saying he's come off the bench and he's tried to rough them up a little bit, and straight away you saw no one fancied it. And that's a real problem if that's true. My issue is I don't think it's Troy Deeney's place to be sharing that. Troy Deeney's not a pundit. He's a professional footballer. And I think as part of being a professional footballer, you have to show respect to fellow professionals at all times, and fellow managers, fellow football clubs, and fellow football fans. It's not Troy Deeney's place to give, to do a character assassination of Arsenal's backline. That's not his job. That's what we've got pundits for. So I thought he was very poor in that respect. What he's saying is true. We know it's true. We know Arsenal have got issues dealing with certain sides, and they need to deal with it somehow. And just hearing those comments is going to inspire other talentless centre forwards to go bundling in. And I just don't think it's Troy Deeney's place to be sharing that.
See, my issue with it is that I found it disrespectful, and not so much to Arsenal as a club, and the cojones bit and all that. That didn't really bother me. The bit that bothered me was his decision to personally dig out Per Mertesacker. Now, if I was Per Mertesacker, I'd be straight in there retaliating. And you know what? Per's a better man than me, because I would have been straight on social media posting a picture of my World Cup medal saying, here's mine, now show me yours. Because Troy Deeney isn't, as far as I'm concerned, is a nobody in the game. This man is an ex-convict. And you know what? He wanted to character assassinate our defense. So I'm going to do it to Troy Deeney. Troy Deeney is an ex-convict who has achieved absolutely nothing in the game. If you went and asked the lads in Serie A, who Troy Deeney is, half of them wouldn't even have a clue. Troy Deeney is not in any way qualified to dig out a World Cup winner in the manner that he did. And I thought it was disrespectful, it was rude, it was out of order, and I felt like it was just a poor attempt to try and make that victory all about himself, because he is the forgotten man at Watford. Under Marco Silva, he does not start. This was an attempt for Troy Deeney to put himself back in the shop window, back in the spotlight, and try and establish his place back in the side. Now, what you guys are saying about his comments being true, yeah, there's an element of that too. And I think as an Arsenal fan, deep down, I know that there is an element of truth in these comments, and that's why it hurts. Sometimes the truth hurts, doesn't it?
It does. It does. What was his conviction for, anyway?
Apparently, he kicked someone in the head while they were on the floor. Got done for assault or GBH or whatever it was. Supposed to serve 12 months, only served 3 because he showed remorse. What a load of rubbish that is.
The thing is, he picked the right pundit in Martin Keown to be saying that stuff to, didn't he? I mean, if anyone's going to agree with him, it was going to be Martin Keown. It's like having Terry Butcher on this diving. He's one of the people on the diving panel. So I'm surprised they haven't all been done, to be honest. So, yeah.
Guys, that brings us to the end of a very, very long part 1. Longer than planned, but it's all good. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to the Sofa Sports News podcast, part 2. Another Champions League match day has been and gone. Of the English clubs, Spurs faced the biggest challenge with a trip to the Estadio Santiago Bernabeu to face Zinedine Zidane's Real Madrid. Dan, Poch's team selection was questioned by many pre-match, but he got it spot on, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. I mean, that's what cojones looks like. That is what you want from your manager, because you look at team selections recently in big games, like Chelsea springing to mind, and playing Son at left wing back didn't work. If we went there and got battered 4 or 5-0, which we might have with that team selection, he would have been pulled over the coals. And he didn't care. He did what he wanted to do. He did what he thought was right. He executed a game plan, and he got a point, which was, I'm sure, is the maximum he would have hoped for when he woke up yesterday morning. So, I mean, yeah, it was brave, and when it comes off, it's it's nothing but praise.
I think it shows the importance of like when to play, where exactly to play your best player. Like for me, Eriksen's the best player, and it's such a massive, massive decision as to how deep or how far forward you play him. That can be the difference.
I didn't think Eriksen had a particularly good game yesterday.
I thought him playing deep made the difference, personally.
He didn't have his best game, right? He didn't have his best game, but he had to sacrifice a lot of what he does well for the good of the team, and he did that, and his personal performance suffered. In a similar way, Harry Kane didn't have his best game, and he was playing slightly deeper to accommodate the gap left by Eriksen. Eriksen's game, he was a bit sloppy in possession, and I think there's been talks about whether he's world class recently. I think he got to play in a midfield against 3 world-class midfielders. And I think he may leave that pitch realising what his level is compared to those players. But, you know, he did what he had to do for the team. And it was a team performance yesterday by Tottenham. So a lot of the individual plaudits that the players have had over the last few weeks, couple of seasons, had to be put to one side.
De Luca, sorry. What exactly did Llorente bring to that starting 11?
Yeah, I really look, when the team news came out, I was a bit bemused, and then I was like, oh, you know, go on, we're going for this. But what he did was he made the ball stick. He made a nuisance of himself, and Real Madrid are going to have a lot of possession, and every time you can make that ball stick, the best example of it was about 60 to 65 minutes, and there was a long punt upfield, and he leapt above Ramos and headed it back into the path of Kane and took the pressure off. If that was Son, for example, we would have been playing otherwise possibly. That ball was bouncing back. And look, let's be fair, Tottenham had a good result, right? There's no doubt about that, and Tottenham played very well. But Real Madrid were the better side, and there were times when Tottenham rode their luck, and there were times when there was waves of pressure from Real Madrid. And every time Llorente took the sting out of that just for a few seconds to give those defenders a little bit of respite. It was an absolutely massive performance from him, and I think his impact yesterday might be underestimated by a lot of people. But I was really pleased with his performance.
De Luca, if you had to pick one standout performer for Spurs, who would it have been?
It's actually Davinson Sanchez.
Okay.
Davinson Sanchez for me. He seems to have escaped a lot of praise for this. Obviously, amongst Lloris's saves, the usual suspects, Harry Kane put himself about for Tongan. But Davinson Sanchez put in a pretty colossus display at the back there. He didn't make any mistakes. And for one so young and someone I've had reservations about in terms of diving in, he showed a really mature performance. And I was really, really impressed with him at the back.
You're forgetting Harry Winks, who is obviously the new Iniesta, from what I've heard.
Oh, don't get me started. Don't get me
started. Winks Iniesta. I told you he was a player, Harry. I told you he was a player.
This is so typical of the British football fan, yeah? Harry Winks had a decent game yesterday, no doubt about it. Maybe even a good game, maybe even a brilliant game. But the fact is, he needs to do this consistently at the very top level, week in, week out, before you can go around saying that he's a top player. And this is what annoys me. Like, Jack Wilshere performed against Barcelona once, and now look at him. You know, it's far too early to be calling Harry Winks a top class player, and that's my only objection. I hope he becomes one. Good luck to the guy. I hope he grows up and becomes, you know, one of the country's stars. But it's just far too premature for me.
But you don't mean that in the slightest.
Well, maybe I don't mean it as in. Well, I mean if he leaves Spurs, I guess. The
thing is that there's got to be something as a football fan, a podcast presenter, a podcast panelist, a blogger. There's got to be something about us that means we can look at a player and predict what he's going to become. Because if we're going to sit there and wait for him to win 4 World Cups, 2 Champions League, and say, "Oh yeah, he's good now," I mean, anyone can do that. What's going to set us out from the rest?
I'll tell you what it was, De Luca, that made me, you know, and I said it last week, and a few people on our Facebook group have been saying this as well. The England squad was announced, and Harry Winks was included, and good, because you know what, in terms of midfield talent, England, they don't have.
There's not a lot out there.
Yeah, there's not a lot out there. England caps are far easier to come by now than they probably were in the days where Lampard and Gerrard and Scholes were all around. You know, so that is one of the reasons he's got into the side. I'm not saying that he's not a good player. I'm not saying that for a minute. It's this obsession with young English players and the tendency to build them up so high. And then the minute they fail, just chop them down and ultimately ruin them. And that's my issue with Winks. Somebody posted a video I think it was Nick Nicolau, posted a video in our Facebook group today. So shout out to Nick Nicolau, of Harry Winks literally receiving the ball, turning with nobody around him and playing 5-yard passes. And somebody else commented underneath saying, who the hell wants to watch that as a highlights reel? Like, post some clip of Ronaldinho or something. And that's my point. Like, people are sensationalizing Harry Winks doing the basics. That's the thing.
He's not exactly the second coming of like Hadji Riquelme Nedved rolled into one, is he? Like,
well, he is if you believe the Tottenham fans.
He will. I have no doubt he will be a very, very consistently high performing footballer. And I'm not saying this after a couple of performances. I told you this 6 months ago, after watching him play 2 or 3 times, and it's because of the way he gets the ball. He plays proper football, and he's not afraid to go forward. And there's something about being a top level footballer. They've all got that confidence about them, and you can see at the age of 21 in a midfield, the best midfield in the world currently, arguably. Modric, Kroos, who else was in there yesterday? Yeah, Casemiro joining in, didn't you? To stand in there and not be overawed when other more experienced players look more nervous than him in that Tottenham side. There's something about that has to be acknowledged, and he's going to go far. He's going to go far. He's a top footballer. All right, you can get a little bit overexcited about 1 or 2 things. He gave the ball away a couple of times yesterday. Like, you could put a highlights reel up of that and he'd look terrible. But the thing with English footballers, it's always one extreme or the other. Like yesterday, I think it was Rio Ferdinand who was talking about Raheem Sterling, and they were saying how underrated he was. And Rio Ferdinand said, well, if he was a foreigner banging in goals at that rate, everyone would be going crazy. So in that respect, he's saying, well, he's underrated because he's English. And then in the example of, I don't know, Harry Kane, for example, he's overrated because he's English. I think it just depends what mood the person's in.
Yeah, it's 2 extremes, exactly as you said. There's two extremes. Alavi, you were watching Manchester City versus Napoli. I know we've already spoken about Manchester City tonight, so we won't spend too long on it. But how did that one go?
Do you know what? They weren't as clinical as they were against Stoke, and you can see Napoli have got quality, and they're one of the most informed sides in Europe at the moment. But to summarise, City essentially just blew them away in the first sort of 25, 30 minutes. Not even necessarily with sort of goals, but just, it took ages for Napoli to even get a touch. So their main man went off injured. I think he'll be okay for the weekend because they've got a huge game. So you can tell there was a level between them, but you can also tell that teams like Napoli are very quickly catching the very best in Europe. And at the moment, City and Madrid and Barcelona are the 3 best in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, there's you could say that this fixture brought together Europe.
Yeah, the 2 most informed. Yeah.
Definitely.
Napoli are struggling to get out of this group though at the moment because they've lost to Shakhtar Donetsk, haven't they? So
I've got a theory about Napoli in the Champions League, but I'll save it for the Serie A section a little bit later on.
So just to finish this section, what happened in Emmerdale yesterday anyway, Harry?
I was actually watching your boys, to be honest. My house was invaded by Spurs fans and I had to sit and watch it.
Oh, you're married to one, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Elsewhere, Liverpool decimated a bunch of Slovenian factory workers. They beat Maribor 7-0. Manchester United nicked a 1-0 win at Benfica tonight. We're just recording just after that's finished. The pick of the bunch was the game at Stamford Bridge between Chelsea and Roma. Chelsea 2-0 up, Roma 3-2 up. And it ultimately ended 3-3. So I guess all things considered, it's not a bad result for Chelsea.
It was a bit of a weird one, if you saw the game, because you went from thinking, well, Chelsea are going to definitely win this to, they're lucky to get a draw there.
Yeah, I mean,
a bit of a weird one.
Helped by the fact that Atletico dropped points
massively, but they'll regret that though, because that's a chance for both those teams to increase the gap
themselves, because they could have potentially made up a couple of points on sort of the 2 ahead of them.
Apparently United were poor. I just quickly saw the sort of Sky Sports analysis after. Apparently they were poor and they got a win. So
yeah,
is what it is.
It was never going to be an entertaining fixture, was it?
No. They have scored 83 games in the Champions League, to give them a bit of credit.
Fair enough.
And then they've scored 4 goals 3 times in the league already.
Can always rely on De Luca to bring up some great stats
Yeah, so we criticise him for parking the bus, and my point with Mourinho is he parks it when he needs to.
Or he's lost the keys and he can't move it.
Yeah.
So, a strong round for the English sides overall. Quickly, before we finish off on this, could this be a year for one of the English clubs, or is it too early to say? Alavi?
I'm sticking to Madrid to win it again, but Barca to win La Liga. I never want to change my original prediction, but I don't know. In a one-off game, you think Man City have got the quality, but then Mourinho's the one who can get the result when he needs to against, say, a Barcelona. But no, I'll stick to Madrid.
Yep. DeLuca, just quickly, is this the year an English club could compete again?
I just think if Madrid can scrape a draw against the mighty Tottenham, then they've got to be a good shout to win the tournament. Surely.
That brings us to the end of part 2. We'll be back in part 3. Don't go away. Bonjour, hola, ciao, guten tag. Welcome to part 3, where we turn our attention to the big stories from Europe's big leagues. Did you like my pronunciation, guys?
Yeah, it's good. I taught you well.
Yeah. Starting in Spain, Atletico Madrid held leaders Barca to a draw at the Wanda Metropolitano on Saturday. Alavi, how did that one unfold? Was it a fair result?
Yeah, I think so. It was a bit of a weird one. Valverde threw in Andre Gomez into the starting lineup, and he went for a 4-4-2. And when he switched to 4-4-3, I thought they looked a bit better. I only saw the highlights, if I'm honest, as I was in Greece. But you wonder why someone like Denis Suarez, who didn't even get a look in, and Deulofeu left on the bench, must have made of it all. The substitutions helped change the game, like Roberto crossing for Luis Suarez to snatch the equaliser, who is not in the best reign of form, but he's still getting the goals, and on his day he's still the third, fourth, fifth best player in the world, in my opinion, in the top 5. It was another superb strike by the guy I keep going on about, Mr. Saúl Ñíguez, to beat quite a strong Barcelona defence, and that's something you wouldn't really associate with them. They're doing really well at the back and not quite as good going forward, It is weird, isn't it? Because you think Suarez is really struggling. They obviously missed Neymar. They've got, a big £120 million signing now out injured. And for me, they've got to just drop Rakitic. And, looking at the midfield, he just slows them down for me. So that's what I'd want. I wanted to see him get dropped. I want to see Luis Suarez, just play with a bit more confidence. And I want to see him win the league, because that's what I went for, and that's what I believe they'll do.
Yeah. In Andalusia, Valencia stormed to a 6-3 victory over Real Betis. Alavi, you wrote a piece for the website earlier today suggesting Valencia could be La Liga's surprise package this season. Tell our listeners a little bit about them and what's been so impressive so far this season.
I think with Valencia, they know what they're good at. And they know what they can do, and they know what they can't do. They play, like I wrote in my article, they play 4-4-2. They're tight, compact. They're extremely quick on the break. They've got Seville this weekend. So that's a real test, because Seville are a top 5, top 6 side. I think it stems from the manager, Toral, who's someone we know about from his days at Villarreal. He's been given the freedom to bring in the players he wants. Okay, he wanted a couple of players that a lot of people thought Valencia couldn't get, and he's ended up getting them on loan. I think one's from United, and I'm trying to recall the other one. I think he's from Paris Saint-Germain. But the two I'm talking about, I won't even try and pronounce their names, but it's Pereira and Guedes. So if you think about how long it's just been dominated by the two big boys in Atletico Madrid, it's really nice just for someone else to get a bit of a run in. So I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, keep your eye on Mr. Kondogbia, because I think he's a really good player, and French defender who can play almost anywhere across the back line, and he's a player to look out for, definitely.
Yeah.
What was Seville's result all about last night, though?
Oh, unbelievable! Unbelievable result. I don't know. Alavi will probably know a little bit more about Seville. How are they faring at the moment?
So they're sixth, I think. So they were someone I really fancied to do well last year, but it's very difficult breaking into that top two, because all these clubs end up being selling clubs. Again, I wrote in the Valencia article. If you look at the players who've had to sell, Silva and Isco, my two favourite players, they've had to sell them. And it's the same with Seville. Benitzo, the manager there, any great player he'll have to sell.
Yeah, it's always a case of nearly with clubs like Seville, isn't it? And like you said about Valencia, I remember growing up and seeing Valencia dump Arsenal out of the Champions League.
Yeah.
On more than one occasion. So, it's nice to see a club of that stature.
Big John Carew.
That's it, Big John Carew. But it's nice to see them sort of back doing well again, especially after they had to put up with Gary Neville for a while.
Oh, Banniga's a player to watch out for Seville. I like him.
Yeah.
I like him a lot.
In Italy this weekend, we were spoiled. I mean, what a round of fixtures. The standout game being the Derby della Madonnina between Inter and Milan. Mauro Icardi's hat-trick was enough to increase the pressure on Montella, whom spent a great deal of money in the summer but hasn't yet been able to find the right balance. That was their fourth defeat in 8 games this season. I've been asked by a few people now if I think there's a return on the cards for Carlo Ancelotti. The answer is who knows, but all I do know is that Vincenzo Montella needs to turn things around and fast. Elsewhere, Juve lost at home for the first time in more than 2 years, despite being awarded a penalty, perhaps controversially in stoppage time. Up stepped Paolo Dybala to potentially level things, but it was saved. Thomas Strakosha of Lazio with the stop. Dan, just before I continue, you didn't think it was a penalty, did you?
No, of course I didn't think it was a penalty. Of course. What is he supposed to do?
You're having a laugh. You are having an absolute laugh.
You can't be giving penalty for that. He's a defender.
You are absolutely...
He's tackled.
Oh, man.
He's tackled. He's in the last minute of the game.
Mate, you've been on the limoncello, mate.
He's been tackling. He's tackled the ball. He's won the football.
Days.
What does he want to do? I just don't understand what people want this defenders to do. Move out of the way and let him score.
It was a reckless challenge. There's no doubt about that.
That is a penalty, Dan.
But Juve's defeat did mean that Napoli had the opportunity to open up a 5-point gap on the champions, and they made no mistake. Lorenzo Insigne, with his 100th career goal, ensured Maurizio Sarri's men left the capital with all 3 points. Now, going back to what I said earlier on about Napoli and the Champions League. So, I heard something really interesting on the Continent podcast, I believe it was, and it was James Horncastle, who's a Serie A expert, and he said that the impression he gets from the people in and around Napoli is that the Scudetto is their number one priority this season. They are dying to get their hands on their first title since the Maradona days, and so that takes priority. And you know what? Based on the way they've performed in the Champions League so far, it's probably not a bad shout. But anyway, things are shaping up nicely in Serie A. Just 5 points separate first through to fourth. And Roma in fifth have a game in hand and a chance to catapult themselves back into the mix. I wouldn't want to call this one at the moment. I think anything can happen. But one thing I will say is do not write off Juventus just yet.
What are the odds of a
I haven't got them to hand, to be honest with you.
Okay. Be interesting.
It'll be interesting to see. And in fact, that's something we can do going forward and, monitor them and see how they sort of change from week to week. Guys, we're going to take another short break. And in part 4, we'll discuss the latest Premier League boss to face the axe and have a bit of fun. Welcome back to the fourth and final part of this week's show. Just like I told you he would, Craig Shakespeare has been sacked. Having won just a single game this season, the Foxes find themselves flirting with relegation just as they did when Ranieri was given the boot. So it's only fair, isn't it, Alavi?
It is. It goes back to what I said nearly a couple of years ago now when the whole Middlesbrough thing came. When someone's part of the problem, I don't see how that they can, go on to be part of a solution. Now, he has got unlucky, hasn't he, in the transfer window because he let Drinkwater go, and who was it? He missed out on someone Silver 14 seconds, right? So, you know, what can you do about something like that? That's
fire
you can get the fact sent 14 seconds earlier.
Yeah,
he's had all summer to do that.
But that's a huge blow. Obviously,
he's
lost.
To sack their admin guys.
Well, that's it. Like 14 seconds. I mean, I know Simi's known for 14 seconds, but that was not that's not on in the football world. So he's got unlucky. However, you know, if Ranieri deserved to get sacked, then so does he. And I think these owners expect Leicester to finish like top 6 or something, or top 8, because who are they going to get in, like Big Sam or something? Like who are they going to get?
They'll get Coleman. They'll get Chris Coleman now.
Success here, because the expectation has just shot through the roof. You know, Leicester were expected to stay in the division. Then they won the title. Expectations gone beyond their means, and now they're suffering as a consequence of that. The thing is, I read a really interesting piece on the BBC website today, and he made a fair point. It was basically saying that Craig Shakespeare has no credit in the bank, having no managerial experience prior to this.
Yeah, he's always been assistant, hasn't he?
Yeah, means he has no credit in the bank. So the minute things turn sour, his job was always on the line. DeLuca, just quickly, what are your thoughts on the latest Premier League sacking?
Look, I mean, overall, ridiculous as it sounds, his tenure has been a success in the sense that the owners thought Leicester were being relegated. They got rid of Ranieri, wrong or right, that's what they did. They brought in this guy to keep him up. He kept him up. He took them around further in the Champions League than we thought they might go. And now he's kept them up. 4 months after that, he's basically back where he started, but he's part of the job he's done. He seems to be a pretty deplorable human being, and he probably won't get another top-flight managerial job again. So Shakespeare overall was lost out, which suits me because he seems to me like a bit of a bellend. So happy with all of that, but he did the job that he was paid to do, which was keep Leicester in the division, and he did it. And they shouldn't have bothered giving him a job permanently because they didn't want him. Unfortunately, when you bring in a caretaker manager, whether it's Southgate for England or whoever it is, invariably they get the job full time if they pass the dress rehearsal. But hey, look, he's gone. Where do Leicester want to finish? I don't understand. A bit like last season, they finished 12th, but it felt like about 15th, didn't it? Yeah. Mid-table. That's what they are now. They're a mid-table club, which is good for them for a couple of seasons. But they're going to have to start having some realistic expectations. Otherwise, they're going to keep chopping and changing managers.
Yeah,
a bit like Aston Villa did. And sooner or later, it's going to take its toll, and they'll be back in the Championship again.
I think there's a lot of clubs in the Premier League that suffer from having outrageous expectations, but that's a subject for another day. So we'll leave it there. In terms of potential replacements, I had a quick look today at some of the names being linked with the job. Sam Allardyce was linked, but he was on TalkSport today, and he basically ruled himself out. He said international management is probably more appealing to him at this stage in his life. However, he doesn't want the Scotland job, Alavi, before he starts he kind of, in a roundabout way, expressed an interest in taking over in the USA, which is interesting. A country that struggles to grasp the basics of football, and then they're going to have Sam Allardyce showing them the ways.
If that's the reasons, he may as well stay in Scotland. Surely.
Yeah. I don't know. Also linked with the job,
Sean Dyche,
David Moyes. I think his reputation is tarnished for good now. Alan Pardew might not be a bad shout. Alan Pardew is the type of manager that goes into a club, does well at the start, and it usually takes a couple of seasons before he drops off. Nigel Pearson has been potentially touted as the new boss. That would be second spell at the club.
It'd be a third spell at the club.
Yeah. And Michael Appleton, the assistant manager who's taken caretaker charge at the moment, is another one. And then as I went further down the list, things started getting stupid. Carlo Ancelotti was on there.
Mancini. How about Mancini?
Mancini was on there as well.
Because he used to play for him, didn't he?
Mancini, he did play for him at the end of his career. Yeah, he turned up for, I think he played 8 games.
Yeah, but I think those two, with their managerial sort of pedigree, can be looking a bit higher than that, in my opinion.
Do you think they could tempt Wenger? He could do a job there.
We got to get him out of Arsenal first, and it don't look like that's going to happen anytime.
Seriously, so far this pod's been pretty peaceful. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't want to go too long off
Bring
topic.
it on, DeLuca. Bring it on.
You know Wenger.
Oh God.
Like he used to be good, and he isn't anymore. And the only plausible excuse given for not getting rid of him is there's never been a suitable replacement. There seems to never be a replacement. So Carlo Ancelotti is available now. He's available now. He'll take the job now. Why would you not get rid of him now? I
would drive Wenger to Italy, put Ancelotti in the boot of my car, tie him up, and drive him back myself. But the problem is that Carlo Ancelotti may not want. The thing with Arsenal is not just about not having a replacement, because they won't want to manage Arsenal as a football club, because historically Arsenal are a great football club, but a manager may not want to work under the conditions that are currently at Arsenal Football Club. And by that, I mean Stan Kroenke and his bunch of money men who dictate everything. But anyway, we could go on about that.
Well, it's fair, like 7 million a year, you've only got to finish fourth. I mean, most managers would take that, surely.
Yeah, I suppose so.
But for the Leicester thing, the last thing I'd say is if I was a Leicester fan, I'd want Sean Dyche in. Honestly, I'd break the bank for him.
I agree. Yeah, he's very good.
Voice himself. I don't know. Yeah. You know what? I would, looking at that list, I'd probably turn to Pardew. I know it sounds stupid, but I'd turn to Pardew with the view of him coming in for a couple of seasons to steady the ship, and then when he starts going bad, you can get him out again. Because Pardew does play a decent brand of football.
He's not a bad manager. He's done okay. He's not done a bad job. But
it's longevity, I think, he struggles with.
What about someone like Chris Hughton?
Yeah, potential, but would he ditch Brighton in their current state?
He's too loyal, Chris Hughton.
Eddie Howe? I know he's very Mr. Bournemouth, but that's going to come to an end soon. Sometimes, it might be worth taking the jump before it gets too bad down on the South Coast.
The thing is, do you really want the job if you know you're going to get sacked in a few weeks?
Yeah, there's that as well. Guys, elsewhere, the draw for the World Cup qualification playoffs was made. Northern Ireland faced Switzerland, Croatia faced Greece, Denmark faced the Republic of Ireland, Sweden versus Italy was the last one. DeLuca, you're Italian. Quickly, what are Italy's chances like? Sweden, the worst possible draw they could have got?
Yeah, the worst possible draw in the groups with Spain stuck in pot 2. We had the worst possible draw in the playoffs, but you've got to beat Sweden over 2 legs. But I'm not happy with the FIFA World Ranking system. Needs to be sorted out quickly, because it's a ridiculous situation.
How about you, Harry, for Greece? If you're going to play someone, you want to play someone. Obviously, Iran already in the World Cup, so don't need to worry about that. But Greece, if you're going to play someone, you want an attacking side like Croatia, because that's where Greece really prosper. Well,
yeah. One thing you're going to get from Greece is organisation, stubbornness, resilience, but they're never going to go out there and blow you off the park. It's a tricky one. You know what? I think Greece are fortunate that they're playing away from home in the first leg, because if they go there and get a respectable result, there'll be one hell of an atmosphere in Greece in the second leg, and I, it's not impossible. I still think Croatia may have just too much for them.
Yeah. Well, 2 playoffs before Greece have won, haven't they? When Ukraine and Romania, I think it was, and see what happened last time they had a German manager. So you never know.
Yeah, let's see. Time will tell. I think Republic of Ireland have got a tricky one in the sense that, look, Denmark are not the most talented side, but they're also a side that people don't really know too much about, I think, anyway. I'm sure Martin O'Neill and co would have done plenty of research ahead of the game, but Denmark are a bit of an unknown quantity to me. So that's why when I initially saw that, I thought this one looks a bit dodgy. Northern Ireland, that's going to be tough with the Swiss, I think. But given their amazing home record,
I like my football, but I can categorically tell you I will not watch either of those 2 legs. that will be me and Northern Ireland, and I know Andy was going to be on the show tonight, but me and Northern Ireland, we've got a bit of an issue, because I don't mind celebrating draws in the Bernabeu. I don't mind over-celebrating stuff, but they had a homecoming after Euro 2016. They had a homecoming in the streets of Belfast. Do you know what they did in Euro 2016? They played 4 games They lost 3 of those games, and all the games they lost were to 0, and they had a homecoming.
But it's the participating that counts, isn't it?
Well,
you're an Arsenal fan. You should know.
Yeah,
took
the words out of my mouth, Alavi. But I can't see myself watching either of those 2 legs. I can't think of anything more boring to do. So I'll pick one of the other. Oh, well, I'll be watching Italy, I imagine. But I'll skip over the highlights of that one if there are any.
Right. It's time for a bit of fun. DeLuca answered last week's question in record time, so it's only fair that he's the man asking the question this time. DDL, fire away.
I've got my pen ready. I've been holding it for an hour for this. So,
okay, right. So first of all, I've had a chat with Rob Palmer, a friend of the podcast, and we agreed on a question I'd asked, but I'm going to save that for next time. So apologies, Rob, but I'm going to save that question because I wanted this question to be about the Champions League, being at Champions League midweek. So
hold on, Dan. You can't go around upsetting loyal listeners like Robert Palmer. It's just not on.
He'll understand when he hears the question.
It's cold up in Scotland. Like.
Go for it.
Right. So the question is, there are 6 capital cities.
Oh.
What? There are 6.
Well, me and Harry can name 3 between us for a start.
There are 6 capital cities that host a football club that have won the Champions League or the European Cup. So Madrid is one of the cities. Real Madrid, who have won it 12 times. Name the other 5 cities.
Say it again.
Capitals, yeah.
Yeah. So Madrid is one capital city that has a team that has won the European Cup or the Champions League since its inception in the 60s. Belgrade, very good. You've done your homework because you're playing them on Thursday, aren't you?
Yep. Belgrade.
What the hell?
So there are 6 in total. So we've got Madrid, which I've given you. We've got Belgrade.
This is tricky. Well, let's go around the countries. Italy, it would be Rome. I don't know if Roma, off the top of my head. Should we just throw it out there? Roma? I don't think so.
No, it's a miss for Roma. Roma have been runners-up in 1984, I think, the Grobbelaar spaghetti legs business.
Okay.
Ajax.
Yes, correct. Ajax.
Lisbon.
Ajax won it 3 times in the 70s in a row. Lisbon, Benfica.
So, Red Star. Red Star? No. Red Star.
Why are you holding that pen, Alavi? Write them down so you don't repeat.
Sorry. Sorry. How many have we got?
You've got Madrid, Belgrade. You've got
Benfica,
Amsterdam, and Lisbon.
Ajax.
Yeah, that's Amsterdam.
Someone didn't do
Chelsea.
Yeah, London.
Chelsea.
London. So there's one more left.
Ooh.
How many times did they win it?
Once.
I know this because they won it the year I was born.
Go on.
Staka Bucharest.
Yeah, Staka Bucharest. That's pretty good time, and you've done that in about 3 minutes. You didn't even need to use the pen as well.
I did. I wrote them down.
Alavi, I suggest you check out where that you need to know that the capital of the Netherlands is not Ajax, it's Amsterdam.
No, but the team is Ajax.
Yeah, but just for
you know what I mean. Listen, I think I won that, so I'll be asking them next week.
What do you mean?
I did.
That's controversial. Can we put a poll out on the Facebook page? Who won?
Well, no, we just got to count.
Right, I've got a question of my own, a quick one.
Bloody!
Sorry, I had to get this in.
Right, I got my pen.
Right, who was the last England manager to lead the national side out at the old Wembley?
Keegan.
Kevin Keegan.
1-0 Germany. Come on, mate. Have a day off.
Dietmar Hamann scored.
No.
Have a day off, Harry.
Mike Bassett, England manager.
Right. What was your question?
Seen that film?
Right. Can we move on? What was your Rob Palmer question? Can we just know it now?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So for the sake of the pod, we're already overrunning. So let's go. Right. The Rob Palmer question is, and I knew the answer to this because I've been asked it before, and I will tell you how I got the last answer. But there are. All right, I've got the question right now. There are 8 cities in the UK that could host a derby.
Liverpool.
So Liverpool versus Everton. Yep.
London.
Yeah.
Birmingham.
Yeah.
Isn't that the only places in England?
Nottingham. No.
Yeah.
Nottingham is correct. Yeah.
Bristol.
Correct.
Could Southampton hold it?
No, it's not one city, is it? Southampton,
Portsmouth. 8 cities.
Glasgow. Are we counting Scotland?
Glasgow doesn't count.
Okay.
So this is just England.
Just England, yeah.
Oh, this is a tough one. Sheffield.
Yep.
Oh yeah, of course.
How many we got left?
You've got one left, which is the one that no one gets apart from me for the most ridiculous regions in the world.
So what's the ones we've done?
Right, you've done Sheffield, you've done Bristol, you've done Nottingham, you've done London, you've done Manchester, you've done Liverpool, and you've done something else I've forgotten.
I don't know. I'm
No, hold on.
Alavi, this pod cannot go on.
Hold on.
It was you with all your extra questions.
Talk. My question took about 3 seconds.
Manchester, Liverpool, Sheffield, Nottingham, Birmingham, Bristol, London, Stoke.
Yay!
Oh man, I'm definitely one this week.
Yeah, I'll give you that. But you didn't
Stoke.
know any of the rest of them.
Stoke.
Yeah, because I was too busy not doing the obvious ones, Harry. Like, Liverpool, yeah. No shit, Sherlock.
Stoke can play Port Vale in a derby.
Robbie Williams. I'll go back because Robbie Williams
is how I got it.
Yeah.
That's how I got it. Because I
was going through celebrities.
I can't believe you don't actually listen to Robbie Williams. Anyway,
mate, I'm loving Angels instead, mate.
Anyway.
That's a shame.
That brings us to the end of another Sofa Sports News football show. Lads, I want you both to give yourselves a pat on the back and say a huge thanks to our partners at the FNX network and all our recent guests. For the month of September, we had over 133,000 individual listens, or unique listens, I should say, on just that one platform. So a big thanks to Ryan and the team at FNX. You can check out our website, sofasportsnews.com. You can check out our Facebook page, Sofa Sports News, the Football Fan Network. We also have a Facebook group by the same name, and you can follow us on Twitter at Sofa Sports News _. I must say, Rob Palmer is top of the Fantasy Football League. He will not stop commenting for me to update you guys on that. So I'll do it just to get him off my back. Well done, Rob, but the season does not finish in October. From all of us here at sofasportsnews.com, arrivederci.
Stoke, anyway.